the college football pick show here on the Early Edge, presented by BetMGM, the sportsbook born in Vegas. I'm your host, Mackenzie Brooks, taking you through the slate with Emory Hunt, Mike McClure, and Tom Casale. We had a great week last week. We'll dive into that a little bit more later in the show. This is obviously going to be a massive, massive week in college football. We've had this weekend on our calendar circled for a very, very long time. Tom, I know you mentioned it on Twitter as well. If anyone has plans, you're just really not in the right headspace. That we can tell you. Tom, how are you feeling about this weekend coming up in general?
Oh, I can't wait. I love a good big college football Saturday, and maybe let's have a little chaos, huh? I enjoy a little chaos. We'll talk about that later on in the show.
Yes, a lot of chaos coming. Emory, are you feeling mentally prepared for the week ahead?
Definitely. It almost harkens back to the old days where you had these big games all in the same game window. So that 3:30 window is going to have a huge slate of big games on the schedule.
Yeah, even that night slate as well. Mike, any slate specifically you're looking at and targeting here?
The entire slate, whether it be starting on Friday, all the Saturday games. I think we got a banger on Friday night. Florida State at Virginia. That is a very, very good game. If you like following the Big 12, TCU at Arizona State has some implications in that conference. So, yeah, big games everywhere. But as Emory mentioned, that afternoon window on Saturday, absolutely loaded.
Yeah, no doubt about it. We're going to get into our best bets for all of these games, talk all the marquee matchups. Before we do that, just want to address some housekeeping things from last weekend and even yesterday when we find out Oklahoma's quarterback John Mateer is undergoing right-hand surgery. No timetable for his return. He was in that Heisman frontrunner race, someone we've been high on this show specifically as well. Now, I don't want to say there's a great time to lose your Heisman candidate quarterback ever. I will say they're going into a bye week in Kent State, followed by South Carolina and Texas. So, I mean, the first 2 weeks of that sound pretty good. But Tom, did you even have this team in your college football playoff? Does this obviously take them out of your college football playoff? What are your thoughts on this right now?
I did, and it does. I really like this Oklahoma team. I wanted to bet them against Texas because I think their defense is going to be all over Arch Manning. I love their defense. This, to me, is one of the biggest injuries that could happen in college football, right? Only because I wrote a Heisman article right before he got hurt where he was the favorite. And I said, Oklahoma might have the toughest schedule that I've seen in recent memory. I mean, after Kent State, you're looking at Texas, South Carolina, Ole Miss, Tennessee, Alabama, Missouri, and LSU. That was going to be hard to navigate with Mateer. Without him, however long he's out, it's just going to be too much. If the schedule was easier and he came back, I'd give him a chance because of their defense, but that's just too much. That's a brutal schedule.
Yeah, it's so tough. And even you have people who are talking about, he felt like he is the whole offense. Like, do they have enough, supporting characters to help him out here with this gauntlet of a schedule? Emory, right now they're minus 180 not to make the playoff. Does that sound like an appetizing number to you? Do you think there's still value on that?
There's still value for them to make the postseason. I look at this as probably the best time for them to have the injury to Mateer, although it will change how teams game plan against them offensively. What he has is something that you really can't quantify. He has the intangibles. He has the it factor. What makes him special is how his situational awareness is killer. And so, yeah, there may be other physically talented quarterbacks on that roster. They can run fast, they can throw far, all those things that Mateer can do, but maybe do it a little bit better. But what Mateer does exceptionally well is handle those situations. Without him, they lose to Auburn. And so that's the difference that Mateer makes for this football team. And not having him versus South Carolina may be a bigger issue than being let on, but we'll see how it goes. But he may be back by then. That bye week came at a great time, and we don't know the severity of this injury because they left it rather vague, but we'll see. But I feel like if he's not back by South Carolina, that could be a huge game.
Yeah, we have that in the SportsLine model now knocked down to essentially a pick'em game without him. You have Michael Hawkins Jr., who does have some familiarity playing backup for this team here. Mike, do you think he'll have enough juice in him to help this team stay in this playoff race at all?
I think it's just the difficult schedule, Ken. It's like, look, they're going to win the Kent State game. So look at the remaining schedule. You got those 7 games to make the college football playoff. They have to go 4-3. 4-3 was going to be a pretty good outcome with Mateer, considering the schedule that they have here. I think he was phenomenal. He pushed them over the edge. They were on track to make the college football playoff. I thought this team was, with average quarterback play, would have been a 6-win team this season because of the schedule. It's just a really, really difficult schedule. So can they go 4-3? That is the question, right? I think the big thing that's helping them is if they do win any of these games, they're all going to be signature wins, just because of the conference they play in, the ranked teams. The bad part is like 3 and they're still in a conversation with other teams. Like they really need to go 5-2, and I don't see them going 5-2 with or without him. So I would be on the side of missing the playoff here.
Yeah, this is a team that was dancing around a 6.5, 7.5 win total preseason as well. And I personally do think a 9-3 Oklahoma, given the situation, probably would make it in the playoff. Now, obviously, that has a lot to do with how many teams you get from the ACC, Big Ten, etc. But definitely an uphill battle for the Sooners. Wishing John Mateer a speedy recovery. Let's move on to the Big Ten here, because we saw an Indiana smackdown on Tom Casale's Fighting Illini in Illinois. Now, I don't want to say I told you so, because there's still a lot of season left, Tom. But it wasn't looking good for Illinois. They fall to 23 in the AP poll from 9. You see Indiana move up to that 11. So as we talk about more of the at-large bids, probably realistically for the Big Ten instead of the SEC, Tom, do you think they are in a spot to be contending for that?
Oh, I do. Listen, they look phenomenal. That's a pretty good Illinois team, no matter, I know you weren't as high on them as I was, but they're still a pretty solid team. And they made them look like a high school team. The only thing I'll say is this. I don't remember a game where I've seen so much overreaction from one win. Like Fernando Mendoza is now the favorite to win the Heisman. It's pretty crazy, right? Because Indiana hasn't played a game away from home yet. They beat 3 inferior opponents and Illinois at home. We'll see soon. They're going to Iowa. They're going to Oregon. That's their next 2 games. They're going at Penn State. I think Kirk Cignetti is a top 5 college coach in this new era of college football. So I think they'll be right there. But I think when you get a game like that, you almost got to throw it out a little bit for both teams.
Yeah, no, that's fair. And they take on USC at home, so maybe an at-home bounce back for this Illinois team. Indiana, still a lot to prove on the schedule. They're dancing around probably with the Michigans and the USCs. Mike, do you see this as a better team as some of these other at-large contenders?
I think they're a good team, but I don't think they're a serious title contender at this point. Now, if they go on the road to Iowa and Oregon back-to-back weeks and win and are competitive at Penn State, sure, I'll change my tune there. But as of right now, I think, as Tom mentioned, one of the biggest overreactions we've maybe seen. I get that the game was extremely lopsided. I think you see big overreactions towards both teams that competed on the field that day. But for me, it's the fact that they haven't gone on the road yet. They weren't good on the road last season. It's very different in college football to dominate and win football games at home and then go on the road and repeat that performance. So they're a good team, not a great team.
Okay, yeah. Definitely need to see more from them and their resume and see them hit the road. Emory, do you feel like you've seen enough to call this team a solid contender?
This is what I love and hate about college football. Had this game been played below the Mason-Dixon line, every major network would have sent their college pregame show to Indiana. Kansas would have been doing TikTok videos with the Hoosier fans, finding the great spots to eat. Everybody would have overreacted if this was played in the SEC. But because it's played in the Big Ten, people now have used this game. I said this on Monday morning. They use this game to knock the Big Ten and knock 9th-ranked Illinois. So because they beat the doors off Illinois, now this one don't mean much because they look how they beat Illinois Big Ten week. And so that's how they're trying to spin it. So based on how they've played defensively, I give this team, yes, a legitimate shot. And now you just added more fuel to the fire because they see the national conversation around them beating Illinois in a resoundingly bad way, good way for Indiana. But that's just because it's Illinois. They was overrated anyway. But meanwhile, you got 20 of the 15 SEC teams ranked in the top 10. So all of that just kind of fused this Kirk Cignetti fire. So therefore, they have something to play for. I love it.
I love, as we get into this conference play, the college football politics are just going to start flourishing out of us into these conversations. We love to see it. Love to see you get fired up about that as well. Right now, you can find Indiana around plus 150 to make the college football playoff, around minus 180 to minus 200, depending on your book, to not make it. And then Illinois is just 28-1, because that was essentially an elimination game. You have USC, Michigan, Indiana, Illinois, in my opinion, as 4 teams outside of that big 3 looking for that at-large bid potentially. And that head-to-head between Illinois and Indiana, and now the smackdown of Illinois, really just takes Illinois out of that conversation. But they do have a chance to redeem themselves against USC this week. Let's move on to a little ACC conversation before we get into some picks here as well. We have Miami, the U, doing the damn thing, ranked 2nd. They've been getting a lot of early praise. Our own Danny Cannell thinks they're like the best team in college football ever, but they're 15-1 to win the national championship. So for being 2nd in the AP poll, 15-1, I'd say is pretty good. Mike, are you buying into the Miami hype though?
I'm not necessarily buying into it. I think they're definitely a step below some of the top tier in the other 2 conferences, talking about, of course, the SEC and the Big Ten. I think the price point's appropriate. Like if they were, say in that Georgia to Texas range, plus 750 to plus 800, it would be a hard no for me. But at plus 1500, I think the price point is appropriate for where I personally think they stack up.
Okay. Tom, do you agree with that?
Yeah, I think it's a good number for Miami. If you take coaching out of it, they've been one of probably the most impressive teams that we've seen, right? They dominated Notre Dame physically. They dominated Florida physically. So it's that offensive and defensive line that's going to give them a chance. I mean, those are top 3 units in college football. And when you get into the playoffs, like as we saw last year, it's about injuries and matchups. Like these games are going to happen in late December. So when you look at just purely a number, like Mike said, I think, yeah, that's because if they beat Florida State, it's easy pickings the rest of the way. So this is probably the best number you're going to get, especially if you think they beat the Seminoles in a couple of weeks. So if you like Miami, bet them now.
Yeah, hand up. Could not have been more wrong about this team in the preseason. I took 2 heavy stands, anti-Miami, anti-Clemson. One of them's going my way. One of them is very much not going my way. 2 claps for Carson Beck, former Georgia quarterback here. Emory, do you think this team's going to beat FSU? Like, is there a chance this Miami team goes undefeated in the ACC?
There's a chance, but I don't see it. And I do like their odds for national championship. Here's the thing, and this is setting up so perfectly. This team is so good on both sides of the line of scrimmage, but the reason why no one's really jumping on Miami to go win the national title, because they don't trust the quarterback. This reminds me so much of that Washington team that got to the playoff, I think 2016 or 17 with Jake Browning, and you knew that was a really good team. Sans Browning was the wild card. How good is he going to play? Are they winning in spite of Browning? We still have that feeling about Carson Beck. And if we could pull up that AP top 25 again, when you look at the teams that, let's say, you have these questions about their quarterback list, you talk about some of this, do we have that graphic of the top 25? Look at that. So the ones that have the quarterback that can give you some problems, Florida State, a healthy John Mateer, Dante Moore, Indiana with Mendoza, Haynes King with Georgia Tech, Pavia if they get in with Vandy, and Rocco Beck at Iowa State, and Ole Miss has Chambliss, who's playing outstanding ball. But it's crazy because when you look at the top 5, you have legitimate questions about their quarterback in these playoff games. So therefore, that's why it's still a toss-up of who's going to win that championship. It may be one of those teams outside of the top 5 based on how that top 5 quarterback picture looks.
Yeah, it smells like parody, Emory Hunt. It smells like parody and chaos in this college football season, no doubt about it. It's funny because I always feel like the ACC is against the world. So when the ACC, any of their teams look good, it's better for the whole conference. And if one of their star teams like a Clemson looks bad, it brings down everybody. But the situation with Miami, if they go 12-0 and then 13-0, win this ACC championship, I think it hurts everybody else in this conference. I think they're only going to want to take Miami. I think it becomes a 1-bid ACC conference champion, and that's all you take relative to Miami goes on a rock, the actual ACC champion, then you have so ACC and the college football playoff. I just always find it fascinating to see how many bids they're going to get. Before we move on to our best bets, I quickly want to touch on the Big 12, another very important conference here in the college football playoff. We see Texas Tech take a very, very impressive road win at Utah. You see that NIL money come to life, pay off here. Do you think this is a Texas Tech team that's a serious contender for the Big 12 championship or potentially beyond?
I do. Yeah. I think Texas Tech should be a clear and overwhelming favorite in the Big 12 at this point, just considering how everything else in the conference has kind of played out. I like them, though. We've been on them a little bit. We talked about wanting to be early to them. They're even earlier than I was expecting, right? They're way ahead of schedule. I thought it would take another year, but I think they're right there. I think they're a very strong bet to make the college football playoff. Utah at altitude early in the morning against a team that's got good offensive and defensive line play. That's a huge win. That is a big win. And I think that they continue to rise in the rankings. And I think they should be a very clear favorite in the Big 12.
Yeah, and they basically are. You see them at plus 220 right now to win the Big 12, followed by a plus 500 Arizona State, followed by TCU, and then some. But when you look at the Big 12, you look at Texas Tech's chances to make the college football playoff, it's plus 138, which is not directly correlated to the plus 220 to win the Big 12 conference championship. So maybe that's odds makers implying they don't necessarily need to win the Big 12 to make the football or college football playoff. I find that a little bit hard to believe coming out of this conference. But Tom, do you think there's a case that, hey, this team runs the table, they lose the Big 12 championship, and we still get them in the playoff?
We'll have to see what happens with the other teams. I will say this, though. Like, remember I said people were reacting to Indiana. I'm overreacting to Texas Tech. I was super impressed with the Red Raiders. I do think they would be in the mix with one loss if they run the table. And remember, the committee likes to put in, if you make the championship game, they like to put those teams in. We saw it with SMU, and that was their argument last year. But I'll say this about Texas Tech. A lot of teams spend money. I got a whole list of college football and college basketball teams that spent money that it didn't work. Okay. Florida State last year is one of them. They spent money on that defensive line. And I liked Utah, and I'm not surprised Texas Tech won. I'm surprised with the way they won. They went in there and they bullied Utah and beat a good offensive and defensive line up and down the field all game long. That defensive line dominated. That's Texas Tech last week is the most impressed I've been with a team yet this year. I think they're really, really good, and it's going to be tough to beat them in the Big 12.
Wow. Love the overreactions, Tom. That's how we build entertainment and media, okay? Don't feel bad about it. Emory, are you buying into maybe a plus 130 playoff ticket, a plus 200 Big 12 conference champion for this Texas Tech team?
All that. Give me all that. Like, run the table. And again, state tax-free state money and Texas oil long money. Like, listen, they got infinity dollars out there in Texas. Mm-hmm. What's crazy though about how they dominated these opponents? Baron Morton played awful last week. Will Hammond came in the ball game and balled out. So it shows you there's depth at quarterback in case of emergency. They can go back to Hammond and saw what he did in a high leverage situation. So Morton should be back healthy when they take on Houston in 2 weeks. But man, this is a team that has that look about them going into the rest of the way.
Yeah, no, I love it. I love the excitement around them. It's fun to be excited about a Big 12 team like this. Certainly one of those conferences, again, where you could convince me anybody is going to win, and I would probably believe you. That's a reason they had only 8.5 to 4.5 win totals, because everyone plans on beating up on each other. To think we were sitting here talking about Avery Johnson and Kansas State at some point this summer is just sad. We're going to move on. We got some best bets to get to. We're going to hit those marquee matchups, those top 25 games. And if you want to also get all of our picks on SportsLine, you can, using our promo code WINNERS, to get 60% off the annual plan. Again, that is promo code WINNERS, 60% off SportsLine. Head to sportsline.com/join to cash that ticket. All right, we got to move on. We got a lot of picks to make. Gentlemen, stick around. We'll see you guys after the break. We're calling this one of the biggest weekends in college football. It's time to put our money where our mouth is. We're going to start with that Illinois team we were talking about. Number 21, USC, laying 6.5 on the road, headed to 23, Illinois. Over under sitting around 49.5. Now, sweet Illinois, They are 12-4 ATS since 2024. There is something to be said about that. And you look at USC, they are 0-4 in their last 4 games as favorites versus ranked opponents. Now, obviously, that takes us back a few years as well, not like they're playing a million games in those situations. But it is worth noting. So, Mike, I'm going to head to you first on this game. Are you leaning towards this USC side, or you think Illinois bounces back?
I lean towards the USC side. I do say I wish Illinois was more competitive in that last game and wasn't such a huge bounce back, get right kind of motivational spot here. But I like USC offensively. I just simply think they can score enough points here. Anything under a touchdown is something that I would be leaning into. I think that USC is close here. I still obviously always have some concerns about them on the defensive side of the ball. You're talking about travel. It's East Coast game, early start time. Like there's all the things that could lead to a potential slow start. But ultimately, I think it's simply just betting on the offensive unit of USC. So I would be on the 6.5 here as a lean.
Yeah, you talk about betting on the offensive unit. That's kind of what I want to do here. I'm looking at their team total over 34.5. I do think they can cover the spread, but you just never know what you're getting with this USC defense. So I feel like the team total is a safe spot with Maeva. He put up 35 on Notre Dame, but it's more about this Illinois secondary that's just not there anymore. You got your top cornerbacks out, 2 through 4 in your secondary or injured of some sort, concussed, getting x-rays, haven't played the first few games of the season. Like it's kind of a mess. Not so much their fault, but I just feel like we see USC run up the board and they get their run game involved the way Indiana does. And I think it'll help them out there. Emory, are you in on the Trojan side with us?
Man, you saw how they got blown out last week. They were overrated. Should have been ranked 9th in. I'm just playing. Like, I'm laying these points with USC. I love what I was the sucker who stayed up a little bit late to watch them against Michigan State, right? Because that game kicked off at 11 o'clock Eastern time. Like, let me just give them a half. And so I watched the half live, then I went back and watched the tape. I like what they've done offensively. They look a heck of a lot better this year than they did last season, even though the run game isn't quite USC-like. I'm talking about historically, but it's still a good enough complement to their passing game. And I think defensively they make enough plays, and I think enough plays against this Illinois offense will be enough for them to cover the spread. So I will lay these 6.5 points.
Yeah, we talk about this Illinois defense that's just battered with injuries. Tom, do you think there's a way to attack that with the total?
Yeah, I do. And Emory, I was up till 3 watching that game because I had the over. So I needed one more score in the fourth quarter. I'm going to go with the over here again. Listen, normally this would be a great spot to back Illinois coming off that blow-off loss and going at home. But like everyone mentioned, the secondary is beat up. I don't know how long they can hold up there. So I'm going to lean the over. The other thing I would look at in this game, you would expect Illinois to come out hot, right? They were embarrassed last week. You're going to get that big pregame speech. If they go up 7-0, I might look to back USC live because I think at some point their offense is just going to overwhelm the Illini secondary.
Yeah, I'm in on that. Like the over overall. I'm isolating that team total. We see a lot of love for that USC side. Just not Illinois' weekend potentially. But you know what? Maybe we could be wrong, but I have a feeling we're going to be right here. Let's move on to number 4, LSU, headed to number 13, Ole Miss. Close-ish to pick them here. Around 1.5 is what you're looking at. 54.5 is the total. I will say between these two teams, the home team has covered the last 7 matchups. However, Ole Miss, as a favorite versus ranked teams, just 1-6 ATS in their last 7. Again, that goes back a lot of time. We have to address some pop culture moments in this game as well, as we always have to do. Landry Kiffin, Lane Kiffin's daughter, has now announced her relationship with an LSU player. She takes to the internet on that. Our very own Mikey Overs, who works for SportsLine, was saying, you know what? The Kiffin household must be in shambles. This reeks of one thing, the over. Lane Kiffin has taken advantage of this LSU defense. And little do we know, Lane Kiffin responds to Mikey saying, take the over. Does that sound legal? Probably not. Do I always believe in Ole Miss team total overs because I do believe Lane Kiffin knows what that line is and knows what the spread is? Yes, Notre Dame and Ole Miss, 2 teams I love to take the team total over on. With that said, not that any of you care about that. Tom, do you like this over or are you going the under?
I'm going the under. Whenever a coach tells me to take one thing, I like to go the other way. When I was younger, I always used to bet what the coach said. I don't think I won a game. So, no, I just think, in all honesty, I think the strength of LSU is on the defensive side of the ball, the way they scheme up teams. And listen, Ole Miss has a young quarterback. I just don't know if this is going to be one of those back and forth games these two teams usually play. I don't have a super strong opinion on this game. I have the game around pick. It's Ole Miss -1.5. I think it's going to be a close, competitive game, but I'm going to go against Lane Kiffin and go under.
Yeah, you know what? When the public's on the over and it's on Twitter going crazy and viral, sometimes the right move is just to take the under. Mike, we do see Trinidad Chambliss, who's going to start against LSU. Austin Simmons taking that back seat. Are you believing in our new quarterback here?
I am believing in the new quarterback here. I think that Ole Miss definitely found something. I can't ignore the motivational spot, the bulletin board material for a guy like Lane, particularly at home. Ole Miss is a team that I want to back in Oxford and maybe look to fade them when they travel to those hostile environments. What a classic this game was last year. Had the good fortune to go to that game in Baton Rouge. Wish I was in Oxford this weekend. I tried to and move the schedule around and make it work. I encourage all of you, if you get the opportunity, go to an Ole Miss LSU game at some point in your life. Just an absolutely incredible atmosphere. But to me, I think the bulletin board material, Ole Miss on the way up. I have some question marks offensively about LSU. I'm not sure the defense can hold up in this particular environment. Speaking offensively, for LSU, is Caden Durham going to play or not? I think that matters quite a bit here for that offense. He's listed questionable, and I truly believe he is questionable, trending towards a true game time decision. So anything under a field goal, I would be on the Ole Miss side here to take care of business at home.
All right. I agree there. Emory, are you agreeing with us?
I don't care if it's Trinidad Chambliss, Trinidad James, Trinidad and Tobago. I'm taking Ole Miss. Like, here's the reason why. Chambliss won a national championship at Ferris State. Shout out to my guy, Coach Tony Anise, who has done a marvelous job up there in Grand Rapids, just beating the brakes off everybody with his Ferris State Bulldogs over the course of a decade plus. And so Chambliss is someone that's built for the moment. And Mike touched on it. LSU's offense is questionable as heck, especially at wide receiver. And you need points to really beat Ole Miss. And to your pop, culture point, Kens, we've seen this before. Like, we've seen it with the Roman Empire and Cleopatra. We saw it in Harlem Nights with Sunshine. This dude probably in love already, just met her, right? So he about to be the mark. They about to have him in crisis mode in terms of his coverage because he's so focused on what, the young lady Kiffin is doing. So take Ole Miss all day long. They about to win by double digits.
Yeah, no, that guy is about to be put through the absolute ringer. It's going to be very interesting.
This year, break with him after the game, and then he'll be heartbroken. Now that's going to start a run for LSU. Going to be bad on defense now because he fell in love after she liked one of his pictures. Like, make it out of here.
Yeah. It's tough stuff, man. It's tough stuff. Young
Where
love.
your friends at? You know what I'm saying?
These are children, Emory. Okay, young love. Let them be. Listen, I don't even think this has a lot to do with Ole Miss. I just think LSU doesn't look that impressive to me. And now putting up 17 points against Clemson the first week of the season also doesn't look that impressive to me. I mean, they didn't even score enough points to be close to covering the spread against La Tech. They were like 3 touchdowns short of that. This offense on the road historically does not play great. They've lost to Texas A&M. They lost to UF on the road as well. And even when they played UF this year, given how many turnovers were put right back in their hands, they should have ran up the score like 20 more points. Like, I'm just not – I want to be in on this LSU team, but take Ole Miss, take Landry Kiffin out of it, take the love story out of it. It's LSU on the road right now. I'm not too impressed with. So I'm in on the Ole Miss spread here as well. Going to be an awesome game down in the SEC. And we got more bets to get to. We got to hit that big Big Ten game. We got another SEC game to hit to as well. We're going to do it all right after this. To Happy Valley we go, gentlemen. We have number 6 Oregon on the road in Happy Valley for the whiteout against number 3 Penn State. Penn State laying a field goal and a half here. We love to see the hook over under 51.5. This feels like the first test we're really going to get for these teams. You got Penn State, this stat just, complements everything we already know about James Franklin. 0-5 straight up, 0-5 against the spread. The past 5 games versus AP top 6 teams. Now, we got to think back to what Oregon's done last year when they went undefeated against Penn State and Ohio State as well. So interesting that they're getting 3.5 here. Tom, are you interested on the Oregon side?
No, I like Penn State in this spot. I took them early on the money line at -150. I typically don't do that, but I think Penn State wins. There was a couple of threes for a little bit during the week. I liked it a little bit, more there, obviously. But here's what I'm going to say. In the summer, this line was 6.5. Okay. What's changed? Are we surprised that Oregon went out and blasted Oklahoma State, who fired their coach, Oregon State, who might be the worst team in the country? I just don't know what's changed. Dante Moore is going to be making his first start in a real tough environment at night at Penn State. To me, it's about Penn State having the more experienced team with guys coming back, their first big game of the season at home. I think they get it done. Now, I won't be surprised if Oregon doesn't lose another game the rest of the season. I think they could win the national championship. But this spot right here, I'm going to back James Franklin one more time. He gets it one more time. If he can't win this game with the horses that he has, I'm out.
I know. That's what they say. This is the year. If not now, then when? Mike, I know this isn't a game you're putting, the whole mortgage on here, but if you were to lean aside, which way would you be going?
Yeah, I'll lean with the home team in the great environment. I think Oregon's walking into a very, very difficult setup. And I think that it comes down to schedule, right? Like, this is a game that Oregon can lose and nothing changes, right? They take care of business every other game. They're fine. They're in the college football playoff. Everything is great for them. So, like Tom, I probably said it last year one more time with James Franklin, and I'll say it again here, and I'll probably say it again next year. But if I had to play it, it would be one more time with Penn State. It's just, I make them close, and I think the home field advantage is ultimately what puts it over the edge here.
That's fair. I will say the 3.5 instead of the 3 makes this pretty enticing to me. Emory, do you agree here? Do you like Oregon against the spread, or even maybe just straight up?
Love Oregon, money line and also against the spread, whichever one you choose. The reason why I called Villanova Monmouth last week, and so in prep for that game, usually I'll throw away the game that a FCS team will play, a FBS team. But as I'm studying, I just want to see like how their running back Villanova did against Penn State. But I'm watching the game and I'm like, yo, this game was tight right before half. A missed field goal, and then Penn State scores, and it changed the complexity of the game going in. The cornerback for one particular cornerback for Villanova dropped 2 interceptions, like where they had to review it and overturn it. So this team, and you talked about, Tom, how Oregon blew out those bad teams. Penn State hasn't really done that, even though the score looks like that versus Villanova, even though they covered. Shout out to the Wildcats, but I feel like Oregon is playing better. They have a better quarterback this year in Dante Moore, more so than they had last year in Dylan Gabriel. And I just feel like they'll meet the moment more so than Penn State in this ball game. And this is an issue that has plagued Penn State, because we talked about earlier in the show, the quarterbacks that kind of you have concerns about. This is one of those games. I have no concerns about Dante Moore playing above the X's and O's. I do about Drew Allen.
I'm kind of with you here. Like, I don't want to give James Franklin another chance. I know that Oregon's shown up for the big moments before. We saw it in the Big Ten championship. We saw it against Ohio State. The fact that I'm getting 3.5, I like that too. And then bang, they literally have not covered a spread versus an AP top 6 team in years, plural. So with that said, I like the spread. I honestly think you could go first half spread, even like an Oregon money line in the first half. I wouldn't hate an Oregon potential team total over in the first half. Like, Penn State just has trouble with these types of games early on. So I'm with you. I think if it was a shorter spread, I'd feel differently. This is, again, not one of my favorite bets of the day, but I do think that is a pretty solid number to rock with. Plus 140 for those keeping track at home if you want to hit the money line there. All right, it's time to go to the game of the week. The Georgia Bulldogs. How about them? Okay, coming off the road from Tennessee, then they get the bye week. Now they're ready to vibe. Alabama also in a very similar situation. Georgia just laying a field goal at home here in Athens. Now, this line was at 4 preseason. So, again, it moves down a little bit. I guess you're just going to throw away what happened with FSU, which is fair. But you go back to last year, Bama goes up 27-0 in the first half. For those who don't remember, Carson Beck and the crew do try to make it happen. In the second half, Ryan Williams with basically a game-ending catch that broke my heart, and I still have PTSD from it. With that said, we're back. Does anyone here want to tell me the Georgia Bulldogs are winning this game and covering the spread? Tom?
Yeah, I don't really have a strong opinion on the side. I came into this season with just question marks about both teams, and I don't think they've answered that yet. Georgia's defense, as you know, has been steadily declining for 2 years. And then they go to Tennessee and they get rolled. 500 yards of total offense and 41 points. I really don't care what Alabama did against their last two opponents. I just don't look at that stuff. Wisconsin is terrible. They're going to fire their coach. So, but to me, this game looks at, I just think when you look at 52.5, we're still thinking about the defenses that these teams had in the past. I just don't see it. Alabama played Florida State and they pushed them all over the field. I think both offenses have success. I don't think it'll be as crazy as last year's game, but I think 52.5 is a little light here. So I'm going to go over.
Yeah. I mean, all I have to do is look back to Knoxville. It's the most chunk plays I've ever witnessed a Georgia defense give up in my tenure as a Bulldogs fan. Mike, I feel like you're kind of on the same page here with Tom.
Yeah, this one's an over for me. This is the SEC game that we should all be hitting the over on this week, not Ole Miss LSU. Look, 52.5. To me, this should be a minimum 54.5. I mean, a 31-24 game is like, that's like the default outcome in a game like this here for me. I think both teams are better offensively than they are defensively, frankly. I think that they're going to have the ability to score. As Tom mentioned, Georgia's fallen off a lot defensively, at least in terms of surrendering yards as well. I think it's a competitive game, but not going to get in the way of picking a winner here on this one. I think the line is appropriate. When you look at 3, it's essentially implying these teams are dead even on a neutral site field right now. I tend to agree with that, and I'll be betting on offense here.
All right. Rooting for points is always fun. Emory, are you feeling passionate about a side here?
I'll get in the way. I don't care at me. Like, I love fighting. So give me Bama. And I wish Georgia would have played Bama right after Florida State, because what happened with Florida State versus Bama is sometimes you need to get punched in the mouth to kind of give you that shock to your system. Florida State, in this case, serves as a defibrillator for Alabama's offense and program, because they look significantly better regardless of who they played. Is now they got a pulse. Now they have life. And I'm glad you brought up last year's matchup, Kens, because the difference there was Bama had the better quarterback in Jalen Milroe. And now I feel like the quarterback competition between Gunnar Stockton and Ty Simpson sort of even. So that's a wash. But I just like how coming into this ball game, Bama is playing juxtaposed to Georgia. Georgia is surviving. Bama is thriving. So that's going to make for the over that these guys are talking about. But because Bama is playing really well right now, I'm going to take them to win this ball game.
Yeah, it's tough. Listen, I've watched this movie enough times. I do think now that Georgia faced some adversity on the road in Knoxville, I actually do like them better in this spot. What I am willing to do is hedge some happiness here in 2 ways. One being Alabama's first half team total is at 13.5. You can get plus money right now, plus 108 for that over. Bama to score 2 touchdowns in the first half. Like, Georgia does this, that they let teams like this go up early, and that's just what they do. It doesn't make me scared for the full game, not really, but I do think this is probably a situation where you see an 80-yard touchdown or something crazy coming from Ty Simpson, who is playing very, very well. Side note, I do think his Heisman odds will certainly move down to like 10-1 if he wins this game. So willing to give the team total first half for Alabama. Also, a very juicy, or not juicy parlay, like plus 500. You can get Bama first half money line parlayed with Georgia full game money line. Another situation I just feel like Georgia finds himself in a lot with these marquee matchups. So looking to target Bama early, looking to target Georgia late. I don't love putting money on my own fan bases sometimes because I feel like I can't just enjoy the win. Like I had Georgia covering against Tennessee. Should have just been happy they won, but I couldn't be. So that's the situation. That's how I'm going to attack it there. That's probably 4 of the best marquee matchups we're going to see this weekend. After the break, we're going to get into just our best bets of the entire slate. You can get away from the top 25, okay? This is a safe space. We're going to get into it after this. Listen, we told you we were in a buy low spot last week, and I said it the week before as well. And what do you know? Week 4, the boys turn it around. We go a perfect 6-0 on the best bets last week. Bang. Emory moves to 500. Tom and Mike find 2 wins in the win column to go to 2-6. This is just the beginning. This is a long season. These are 3 of the sharpest minds in college football. Get in on this while you can as we go around to give out our best bets again. I'm going to start with you, Emory, as you are 4-4 in the season, leading the crew here. I see you are on a play that I really like out on the West Coast, our CBS primetime game at 3:30. Tell me about Washington here.
It's fascinating because I am still stuck on how in the hell Ohio State scheduled Grambling. Like, that just blows my mind. That's just insane. So this is a true road test for Ohio State and their young quarterback, Julian Sayin. And when you look at what Washington has done this year, they're playing on fire offensively. I'm a big fan of Jonah Coleman, the short, squatty running back that breaks a lot of tackles, that does a great job in generating chunk plays. Williams, the quarterback, is a dual threat guy that can find ways to make things happen. So I look at Ohio State being truly tested here against a team in Washington. And I'm not a big home or away guy because I feel like, we lost damn near every game we played in. So it didn't matter if we was playing in Cajun Field or wherever, like we was going to lose. We won 9 games out of the 4 years I was there. So, but this is a unique stadium. It feels like when you watch a Washington game, they are so loud, the camera shakes in the field. See, it feels like the stadium post in the video game, the NCAA video game, only there though. And so that's going to kind of razzle and frazzle this young quarterback. So I like this one plus 8.5 points.
I like that. I like that a lot. I've always said, I do think between Oregon, they get at home, and Ohio State, they get at home. I could see them pulling out one of them outright potentially. Maybe it's not Ohio State right now the way they have been playing, but I do think, I agree, Washington's such an underrated place to play, a very tough environment. And Emory, I know you also have to give us a Conference USA play to complement your big CBS game play.
Right, because here's the thing. It's funny how last year Louisiana Tech had the best defense in Conference USA. So that has reigned true this year again. We saw how they made things difficult for LSU, although they may not be saying much, but they made things difficult for LSU. It's funny how they're getting shortchanged here on the road against UTEP, as if UTEP is a tough place. It's a tough place because you got to stay in your hotel for reasons outside of football. But outside of that, they pose no threat on the football field. I'm glad Malachi Nelson is starting and playing finally a full season, but he's been prone to turn the ball over at times. I like how Louisiana Tech's defense is playing. This is an easy number for me to cover. Their offense has now been brought up to where they're competent, and now the defense is excellent. So they got a really good football team. Lay these 4.5 points with the Bulldogs.
I like it. I like when you bring us into the weeds a little bit, a little deeper into the slate. Sometimes that is where the money is made. Mike, I know you have 2 relatively marquee matchups for us here. Ole Miss moneyline being one of your best bets. If you want to reiterate that, you can. But you're also looking at Iowa hosting the red-hot Indiana right now.
Yeah, I'll start with Iowa here, Kens. I'm going to shorten the game a little bit. Plus 4.5 for Iowa in the first half against Indiana. This is Indiana's first road game after the big win over Illinois. I could see a little bit of a flat spot early here. And when you talk about Iowa, they do have an extremely strong home field advantage there. And they're a team that still is strong on the defensive end of the field. So I'm looking at a lower scoring game early. I'm looking at a slower start from Indiana. I think Iowa's live to pull the upset. I think it's priced appropriately for the most part, around 6.5 to 7.5. But when you look at this number in the first half of the game, where I expect Indiana to have some trouble is in their first true road start, in the hostile environment after the big win, make adjustments at halftime, go win the football game late potentially. I thought the number here should have been at 3 or 3.5, but the fact that we're 4.5 here cashing in that kind of situation, in a 14-10 kind of game being a cash ticket, that is very, very appealing to me. So give me Iowa in the first half here, plus 4.5. And then back to Ole Miss quickly. Just on the money line, love Ole Miss here. I am not a believer right now in what LSU's done offensively this season. You look at the games where they've played, decent competition. Yeah. Was it impressive that they went on the road and beat Clemson? In that moment, it was. Now, not so sure. When they played Florida, only managing 20 points against Florida. Yes, I know Florida is a talented team, a lot of talented athletes. Ole Miss, the same situation, though. A great team full of athletes, a hostile environment in Oxford, a ton of bulletin board material here. I'm not so sure that this LSU offense can simply score enough points to keep up here. I know Ole Miss is going to score. The question always becomes the defensive side. Like them here on the money line, though, I thought they should have been a minus 140 to minus 145 home favorite.
Yeah, I think Ole Miss is going to make my best bets. I will say I gave out Iowa as an outright dog on Inside College Football on Tuesday night. I agree with you. I think what Indiana is doing on the ground, like they're averaging 300 yards, 6.5 yards per carry. Like it's not sustainable. I don't think it's going to be going that way for them when they go to Iowa, a defense allowing 2.5 yards per carry right now. Like that advantage on the ground they have is going to very much level out. And it just could possibly be a pretty solid letdown spot in that Iowa tough environment. So in on Iowa for sure. Tom, I want to get to you on our final two best bets. One game we've talked about and one game involving the Rainbow Warriors, and you don't like them.
No, I'm going to go with Air Force here. Emory and I were on a show this summer, and I mentioned, I'm not in the mob. I don't have a ton of inside information, but I do know someone who's around I do know somebody who's around the Air Force program, and he mentioned to me the backup quarterback, Liam Sarka. And he said this kid looks like the next great option quarterback. Now, he did say he thought the staff would be loyal to Josh Johnson, let him start the season. But he said at some point Sarka would get in there. Well, against Boise State, he started the second half, 356 total yards, 3 touchdowns, and 23 points. So he'll start this week. I love Air Force's offense. Now, you say, well, what about their defense, right? They've given up 49 in back-to-back weeks. But I think that's more of who they played. Utah State, to me, and Boise State could be the two best teams in the Mountain West Conference. And they have good running games where they gashed Air Force for 468 yards. That's where Air Force is weak. Hawaii doesn't have the same kind of team. They rank 116th in rushing offense. So I think Hawaii scores some. Air Force scores more. I think they cover the 6.5 this week. And then I'm going to go. I'm going to go to Penn State. I had a couple things I knew I was going to take them here, so that I saved. First of all, with all due respect, Emory, I just don't care what they did against Villanova. I've seen Penn State play this year, and there's no doubt in my mind that they've showed you 30% of what they're going to do. James Franklin knew what their schedule was, and they've been saving everything for this Oregon game. And there's 2 areas with Oregon I think people should be concerned. One, Dante Moore looks great throwing a wide open receivers at home. We'll see how he looks in Happy Valley. 2, the toughest team Oregon's played is Northwestern, if you can believe that. But how about 178 yards rushing for Northwestern? We don't know yet about this Oregon defensive front. It has not been tested. I say Penn State goes for over 200 on the ground and covers the 3.5.
All right. Saying it with his chest. I like it. It's going to be very, very fun in Happy Valley. I was trying to find my way there. My parents are there. My brother's a freshman there. So, maybe a last minute trip for Ken's. Not that anyone cares about that. Let's take a quick best bets recap here. We have Emory with Washington plus the 8.5 hosting Ohio State. He's also taking La Tech this weekend. We're also going with Mike, Ole Miss money line versus LSU, and he's taking that first half with Iowa plus the 4.5 versus Indiana. Tom is on Air Force minus the 6.5 versus the Rainbow Warriors, and Penn State in the big game minus the 3.5. We love to see it, hoping for a very similar week that we had last week. And before we get out of here, after the break, we are going to have to get to our underdogs, okay? Let's get crazy here. And I did take a sneak peek. We got a lot of plus chicken on the board. That's coming after this. Welcome back to the Early Edge College Football Pick Show presented by BetMGM. We got one more segment for you to make some money here, and we are going with the underdogs, okay? One outright winner. This needs to be plus 150 or longer to qualify for said segment. And I'm going to start us off. Actually, that's a lie. I'm going to have Mike start us off because we're in agreement here, and I'd rather hear Mike talk about it than myself.
I'd rather hear you talk about it here, Ken's, but it's short and simple for me. Overreaction week. Indiana had a huge win against Illinois. Iowa is the first true road test. And I say true road test. It's the first road game, but it is a true road test here. Like it's a very difficult environment to go in and play. The style of play in this game as well. Iowa just plays great defense. It's a lower scoring game generally. I think Indiana could find themselves in a rock fight, a little bit of a slow start early. I think Iowa is catching a pretty good number here at plus 240 to really spring the upset. Again, keep in mind, Indiana could potentially be looking ahead. I know they've got a bye week, but they play Oregon next. So this is a game that I think they could have overlooked when they're sandwiched between Illinois and Oregon. So give me Iowa here plus 240.
Yeah. I mean, we know we're going to get chaos this weekend. It's bound to happen. You just have to pick your spots. I think this is a very live dog spot for Iowa here around plus 240. You can find them. Tom, I know you're not in agreement with Emory as far as the Happy Valley situation, but you do seem to be in agreement with what's happening on the West Coast.
I am, and I love his Washington play. You know, I took them really early at 10.5. I thought that was a bad line. It went down at 8.5. But I said, you know, let's have some anarchy this week. Listen, I think Washington is going to give Ohio State all they want. I think Emory's right on the mark with Damon Williams. You know, Arch Manning didn't run it all in that first game. I'll be honest, he looked scared to death out there. He just did. And I'm not saying Ohio State's defense isn't great, but I think this is going to be the toughest offense they've seen all season so far, more so than Texas, because they can do a lot of different things. Now, I do think Washington has a chance to get out early. I don't know if they hold on, but I think this is going to go down to the fourth quarter. So I'm going to take a shot on the Huskies to win the game outright at plus 250.
I'm so in on this. I'm loving the Husky love from the show in general. I do think Washington's going to pull one of these out. Emory, we wouldn't be the same if we don't end this show with the marquee matchup of the week. That is Rhode Island playing Western Michigan. Do tell more.
I do feel like people on this network sleep on how much any streets I beat, right? I did a broadcast of Western Michigan game, I want to say 2021. So I will say this first about Western Michigan. In the press box, you know what Kalamazoo is? It's in Michigan, and it's nowhere near the Mexican border. But in that press box, they have the most phenomenal taco bar ever. Might be the only taco bar in a press box I've seen. And I did partake multiple times during the breaks in that broadcast. I'm like, listen, this is outstanding. And so that's the positives about Western Michigan. The negatives are they're barely scoring points. They're scoring about 13 points a game. It's been a chore for them. Rhode Island has given up only 12.5 points a game defensively, and they're ranked 6th in the FCS. What Jim Fleming has done with this Rhode Island program is very similar to what we've seen Clark Lee do at Vanderbilt. Rhode Island was a doormat. Now they're a perennial power in the CAA. They look like they are ready to make a serious run in January in the FCS postseason. But in this ball game, they are the better team. They will beat Western Michigan because they have the better offense. Their defense can stop whatever Western Michigan is trying to do. As long as the broadcast crew stays away from that taco bar, they should be fine. So I like Rhode Island to get the win here against a MAC opponent.
It pays to tune in so you can get Rhode Island plus the 235 over Western Michigan. You might be moving that line single-handedly once people hear about this show and see you placing those types of bets. So get in on this while you can. And that's the beauty of doing this on a Wednesday afternoon for the team. Let's get a quick recap of our underdog bets for week 5 of the college football season. Mike is on Iowa plus 240 money line. I am also on Iowa. Tom is on Washington to upset Ohio State. And Emory is on, obviously, Rhode Island plus the 235 money line over Western Michigan and that damn taco bar. Gentlemen, it's been a pleasure. Wishing everybody winning tickets, wishing everybody listening along winning tickets as well. We have an amazing slate of college football coming up for us. I hope we are able to optimize our financials over it. It's been a pleasure. We will see you guys next Wednesday at noon Eastern.